Morning and good afternoon to everyone again. This is Ami joining from Exxat. Today, thank you for joining us for part 11 of 15 learning activities, form and evaluation, which is part of our Exxat Prism training series. Helping me today on this webinar are two of my colleagues, Pinaz and Joanna. I want to just go over a few housekeeping announcements. This webinar is recorded and you will receive a copy of this recording 2 hours after the webinar is completed. You can also find this recording added on the Exxat YouTube channel posted under Exxat Prism training series. You will find today's presentation attached in the handout section in the GoToWebinar control panel. Feel free to follow along the presentation and throughout the webinar, if you have any questions, please use the questions uh, box to add any questions and comments. We will break periodically to take any questions and help you out. And if you're having any trouble, you can use the chat box as well. Today we have audience from multiple disciplines, so we would be using screenshots and data from different disciplines across our slides. And we will also be using the combination of live system as well as the presentation. So without a further ado, I'll hand it over to Panas to take it away.
Thank you, Ami. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining in. So today we will go over learning activities and evaluations. To begin with, your presenters for today are Joanna, who is the Senior Account Manager at Exxat, and myself, Binaz Driver. I am the Senior Customer Success Representative. Our agenda for the learning activities today is to go over learning activities group, evaluation setup, and reports. To begin with, we are going to talk about learning activity groups that programs can set up. There are a lot of use and benefits of creating the learning activity groups. Mainly, this is useful for reviewing these learning activities and accessing certain reports that you would want to. Let's take a look at how to create a learning activity group. When you log into your account from your dashboard, you can go on to learning activities. You will see this screen. You see this plus icon here that says add group. When you click here, this will open up a window for you. On this window here, you will be able to create a group name. Now, at times, programs may want to see a group depending on whether they are including all the courses for a cohort to see a report for all the learning activities across multiple courses for the same cohort. Or you could create a learning activity group to see the reports for all the courses across an academic year. Depending on however you would like to organize that, you can decide the name, add the description of that group, and click on the next icon over here. Here, you will be able to search for your courses that you want to group together, depending on whether or not they are associated with a cohort. For programs that offer the course offering based on cohorts that are lockstep, we'll be able to search these courses by selecting the cohort option. If your system is set up in a way where you don't do the course offering based on a cohort, you could search for courses either by name or number or academic year. Once you see the list of courses, you can select them by checking these boxes. Once you've done that, you can click on the next icon to go to the next page. Here, you will be able to see the summary of the courses that you've selected, along with the professional year, the term. If there are cohorts associated, you'll also see those. And then you can go ahead and save them. Once you save it, you will see on the learning activities on the left-hand side, your group is being created. Now, when you're working with a learning activity group, you will be able to access the information by courses or by rotations. So let's take a look at what you'll be able to see by courses or by rotations. The first thing we see here is the course group by courses. So when you click on the group name over here, you will be able to see the display whether it is by course or by rotation, and the reports can be accessed. By course, when you select, you will be able to see the courses listed over here. You will also be able to see the learning activities that are highlighted, which are highlighted in blue. This means that the learning activity has been activated for a given course. For example, if a learning activity is not activated for a given course, it will be grayed out. So maybe you want to set it up, or you don't require to activate it for that given course. Now let's take a look at by rotation. So when you click on rotations, here you will be able to see the groups by rotation. Your rotation names are listed over here along with the rotation start and end date. So these are blocks or rotations. You will be able to see the dates as well. The same thing applies here as well, where you'll be able to see the learning activities that are activated, highlighted in blue. If anything is not activated, it is grayed out, and you can access reports for individual rotations from here as well. I'll take a quick pause to see if there are any questions about these groups.
Um, I'm checking the questions panel. I don't see any questions. So we can move forward, Dinas.
Thank you so much. Okay, so now let's talk about forms and evaluations and how do we set them up. Yeah. So forms and evaluations can be any form like surveys, questionnaire, assignments that are completed during a placement, or you can set them up for a didactic course which does not require a placement. Typically, we have divided these forms in three different types. The first one is the standard form that we refer to. These forms are basically the forms that are already available and just have to be activated upon request. The example of the standard forms are the CIET forms, PTSE forms that PT programs use, and the CEFWE or the AOTA data forms that the OT programs use. We refer to them as standard forms mainly because these are typically copyright forms that cannot be edited. However, if there are any requests, please reach out to your CSS or the account manager to activate the form and check the possibilities of how you can change anything if required. The second type of form, which most of the programs are going to be using, are referred to as custom forms. Now, these forms will differ from school to school as each of the school can decide what the questions should be, what should be the workflow of the form that would you want to set it up as to include what parties are going to be involved in completing it. How will you be able to request these is by reaching out to your customer success specialist or your account manager. When you do reach out to them, please provide them the copy of the form so that they can review it. They will typically schedule a requirements gathering meeting with you to understand how you would want to set up the form and the workflow. Now we're talking about this workflow. Let's also understand what a workflow is. So in the system, there could be multiple users who may need to be involved in completing the form. A workflow is basically just a sequence of steps through which the form passes from initiation to completion. There are certain users who are going to be involved in the process of completing the form. So these could be completed either by student or started by student. This could be something that the school would want to review, or your preceptors would have to start the form and send it to the student to complete it or sign it off. You could also have your faculty members to sign the form, review the form, or pass it on to the students. Now, the workflows can change from program to program, whether it is the student who starts filling up the form, sends it to their supervisor or preceptor to complete it, ask for the faculty to review it and sign it off, and then for the school to review. Typically, the requirement gathering call that your CSS or your account managers are going to do is to understand this workflow and also understand whether this form is going to be used multiple times during a placement, or is it going to be used just during midterm or final, whether this will be a self evaluation or whether this is an evaluation completed on the student by the preceptor or by the faculty. So please keep in mind that these are the typical questions that your CSS or the account managers are going to ask for while the form requirement gathering. So Let's talk about the activation of the forms. Once the requirement gathering is done, we will be able to set up the forms for you to use. But let's say that the form has been set up for your program. We'll take a look at how you will be able to then activate it for your courses. Okay. So to activate the form, you may have to go to the learning activities or the course setup. There are multiple ways of reaching there. So I'm talking about the way you will reach there through courses. From the dashboard, when you click on courses, you will see the list of course offering. When you click on the course offering, you will see on the left-hand side here, there's a setup option under learning activities. When you click there, you will see this page. Here you can see all your learning activities, but the one we are going to mainly specify on today is the forms and evaluations. So to activate those, you will have to click on the plus icon. Now let's take a look about how you will reach this page from learning activities of the dashboard. So in that case, you will have to go to learning activities. You will see this screen. You can see the groups over here that you create. However, you will also see the list of courses listed over here. When you want to set up the form for a specific course, you can click on the setup option over here. This will again take you to the same place where you'll be able to see all the learning activities and select the plus icon over here to activate your forms and evaluations. When you click on this plus icon, this will open up a window for you. Here you will be able to see all the list of forms that are created by Exxat for you. The total number of forms is something that you'll be able to see at the top. Here, there could be forms that are supposed to be completed or started by the student, or there are forms that are supposed to be started by the faculty members or just completed by them. Depending on what the setup of the form is, you might see certain options to activate the form. So let's take a look at those. But to activate a form, you will have to click on that arrow icon of that specific form. Once you click there, another window will open, which will show you this option at the top. That is the preview of the form. Now, this will allow you to take a look at the questions on the form. Please make a note that this will not allow you to complete a form or fill it in because this is just a preview option to see the questions. The second section you see over here is the activate icon. Now this switch is to toggle to activate your form and make it available for a course. The next set of questions here is to decide whether this form requires a placement, yes or no. Now, typically in Exxat, programs can set up forms for their didactic courses or for placement related courses. If this form is supposed to be filled out during a placement, you want to select the option as yes. If this requires to be completed without a placement and is just a didactic course related form, you can select the option as no. Depending on whether or not you select yes or no, you will see this section where you'll be able to set up the publish date and the due date. If this form is a didactic form, you will be able to see a calendar and you can pick directly the date of when you want to publish this form. Now, because we've selected the option as yes, this is a placement-based form, you will see this section here that says publish date for the form. Just to let you know, this is a call out. If you don't see a published date, this means that this form is supposed to be sent out to your supervisor by the school. A published date is only applicable if this form is supposed to be completed or started by the student. So publishing means that you are going to make it visible or accessible for the student. How does that work? Is basically you can select the number of days before or after the anchor of placement start date or the mid date or the placement end date. The reason why you would have to select it this way is because at times it could be a possibility that the students who are a part of that particular course offering could start at different dates. So the placement start and end date for each individual student could be different. So when you say the form should be visible 5 days after the placement starts. It will be applicable for all the students no matter when they start. Likewise, if this form is something that the students complete multiple times or initiate multiple times, you won't see a due date to add because they can create multiple numbers of copies of the same form. However, if this form is supposed to be completed once, you will also see a due date. Again, to set up the due date, you can go ahead and add the number of days before or after the placement start date, mid date, or end date for your students to be able to see. Please remember, this is not a hard cutoff date. It's not that the students will not be able to access the form or the supervisors will not be able to complete it past the due date. However, it is useful for you to be able to see if the student completed this after the due date has passed. They will still be able to access the form and complete it as well. I'm going to take a quick pause to see if there are any questions.
Yeah, we are checking the question box. Joanna, do you see any questions? Um, oh, I don't think
I do
so.
not.
We
Okay,
can hear you now.
okay, thank you so much. So let's go to the next one. Now, additionally, there are certain forms where you would require your faculty members to be able to access them and review them. Please note that this thing is only applicable if you require the faculty users who have limited access to the system to be able to see the form, review it, or make any changes. This is not applicable for the school administrative users because you already have the access to the entire system. The first question here is what faculty role should be able to view the form and make any changes? When you select the drop-down option, you will be able to select whether the course faculty should be able to make any changes and review the form, or the placement faculty should be able to review and make any changes to the form, or the faculty advisor. Now, depending on how you have associated your faculty members to a certain course or a student or a placement, you may want to select to provide them the access to the form that you want them to review. Additionally, it could also be a possibility where you don't require the faculty member to go in and review the form. However, you just want to provide them the access to be able to view a form. This is typically in case if they are a faculty advisor to the student or maybe a course faculty. In those cases, you can select them over here in the second section where it says which faculty role should be able to only view the form. So again, the drop down will give you the course faculty, placement faculty, or the faculty advisor option. So depending on what access you want to provide them, you can select them to have access to make changes and review or just view the form. Further down, let's say that you want to set up a form that has a score to it. We also recommend that setting up a form with scores will be helpful in generating reports where you will be able to see more qualitative reports than quantitative reports. We've also created something known as the aggregate report. Those can only be pulled for a form that has a score. Now, when you want to decide the scoring and things like that, this is the discussion you must have with your CSS and your account manager when they do the form requirement gathering. But based on that, the out of score is something that will be added to this section, and you'll be able to see a particular form having a certain out of score. How that score is calculated, whether this is average or a sum and so on a form, that is again something that is to be discussed while the requirement gathering is done. We also have a grade book where you will be able to see the grades for multiple learning activities for a student. If this particular form contributes towards the student final score, you can select the option as yes. that will open up this window for you to be able to add the weightage towards the student's final grade of this particular form. So in our example, we want to say that the weightage of this form is 30% towards the student's final score. Here you will be able to select that if the form has a low score. So let's say, for example, your students are supposed to score anything above 85. You can set up a low score indicator so that you will be able to see that upfront when you are reviewing the form. You can select the option as yes to set this up, and then here you will see the option that comes up to set up the low score cutoff. So here you can select whether less than or equal to, and then enter the number of the low score that you want to be highlighted off. This is just a call out. When you set this up, there are no email notifications that are generated as of now. This will be only highlighted on the review page, where you will be seeing this as a red highlighted section for any low scoring form. However, if you feel that you want to set up a notification that's an auto email generated to let you know that somebody has a low score, you can reach out to our support team and have them activated. But please make sure to inform our team which user would want to receive this notification, whether it is going to be the placement faculty associated to an individual placement, or it is going to be a course faculty, or is it going to be the school administrator user. So that's about the form setup. Let's go ahead and talk about the assignments. Now, assignments are something that can be set up for any type of course. These are very special forms where you just want the students to upload a document. Typical examples of these could be maybe a project work that your students have to complete, or a journal, or it could be a weekly report that you want the students to complete and upload it as a document. This is something that the students will only be able to submit it to the school. They will not be able to send it out to their supervisors or preceptors to be able to review it. Now, unlike the forms, the schools themselves can go ahead and set up the assignments. Assignments can be set up only for a placement course or for a didactic course as well. Let's go ahead and see how to activate the assignments. So again, you can reach the learning activity from the courses page by clicking on the course offering, and then coming to the learning activities, clicking on the setup icon, and then the plus sign over here for the forms and evaluations. Or if you use the learning activities directly from the dashboard, you will be able to see your groups or the courses listed here, but you want to go to the setup option where you will be able to see this page. Here you will see all your learning activities, but to activate your assignment, you want to click on the plus icon under forms and evaluations. So this will open up a drawer for you. Here, the first thing you see is add an assignment. So when you click on this arrow icon over here, you will see the setup page for the assignment as well. Initially, for the first time when you're setting up the assignment, you would have to add the title of what this assignment is. So in our example, we have the weekly progress report. You can type that on. You can also add instructions for your students so that they know what they need to do. Now, once you have set up your title and the instructions, there are additional questions that will be asked so that this assignment can be set up correctly. The first one here is, does this form require a placement? Like we said earlier, an assignment can be set up for a didactic course or a placement course. It can also be set up as a pre-placement assignment where the student does not require to be placed to access the assignment and upload it. So depending on that, you can select yes or no. Likewise, once you have created an assignment, you don't want to go in every time, type in the title and the instructions. So this option here that says, is this assignment applicable for other course offering in the program as well? If you select this as yes, this particular assignment will be offered in all the other courses as well. However, you can activate it for individual courses separately. So you don't have to type in the title, the instructions, and everything like that. There's also a way for you to set up a score for your assignment. If you select this option as yes, do you want to score this assignment? You will get a box where you can set up the out of score. I'm going to take a quick pause to see if there are any questions.
I'm still not seeing any questions in here, but we did want to bring up just one item when it comes to activating the forms and utilizing those anchor points. We did the testing for utilizing the 0 as far as the number of days to make sure that things are due or published on the day of. And the 0 scenario is an option to do day of or before the start date or before the end date, so that the day is the actual start date or end date of that rotation.
Perfect. Thank you, Joanna. Okay. So now that your form has been set up, right, let's go in and see how multiple users will be able to access it. So the first one we are going to talk about is distributing your forms and evaluations. When we say distributing, that means that you are going to send out these forms to your preceptors or supervisors. Because they don't have an account on Prism, you would have to distribute the form so that they can receive an email, and in that email they would receive a link to access the form and complete it. Now, how to distribute this is again from the learning activities from the dashboard. When you go there, you can select a group and work with a group, or you can just directly select the forms and evaluation section of that particular course. Once you do that, you will reach this page over here where you will be able to see all your forms listed on the left hand side. When you scroll down on this section, the last option is for distributing multiple forms at once. So when you select forms evaluation distribution, here you will be able to see the option as select forms. When you click here, you will be able to see the forms that are activated and can be distributed. You could either handpick individual form or select them all at once. Once you've selected your forms, the next section is to select the recipient of the form. At times, some programs would already assign the preceptor or the supervisor for the student's placement. For some programs, they would require the student to add the preceptor or the supervisor. In both the cases, when you select the option to select the recipient, you will be able to pick and choose or select both the preceptors that are assigned by the school or added by the student. Additionally, there could be some forms that you would require your site staff members to fill out. In those cases, you can select the site staff members to receive the form. The last one here is to send out the form to your faculty members. When you check the box, they would receive the form. But once you have selected the preceptors, you will be able to see the list of students over here. You could either select all the students, or if you're required to handpick individual students, you could check the boxes individually. Once you make your selections, your students and their details would come up over here. So you can see the list of evaluees, their rotation, placement, the form name, and the receiver of this email, who is the evaluator. When you click on the compose email over here, you will be able to see this email notification section that comes up, and you can click on the next icon over here to select your template. Now, the default template is something that we have provided. However, you will not be able to edit this one. So to create your new template, you can click on Add Template and then create the template yourself. This is just to call out when you create a new template for yourself, please always remember to include the delegate link, because this is the link that your supervisors or preceptors are going to click on to access the form. Once you have created your template, you can select the template from the Pick a Template option. Then when you click on the preview option over here, you will be able to see two options. The first one is whether you want to send this form right now. The second option is where you will be able to schedule it to a future date and time. When you select this option, you will see this calendar. When you click on calendar, you will be able to pick the date here and the time. And when you click send, these emails will be scheduled to go out on your selected date and time. Okay. So now we have sent out the forms and evaluations to the supervisors to complete them. Let's take a look at what they are going to be able to see and how they will access the form. So when you do the distribution, they receive an email. So this is a typical example of the email that would include the form name, that will also have the student name if you add that. And typically they would have to click on this link to access the form. Once they do that, the form will open up for them. They can fill out the form. Let's say this is a lengthy form and they want to work on something else. They can always go ahead and click on the save icon, come back and continue with filling out the form. This is just to call out that in case if they don't click on the save option, just let them know they would have to, depending on what their screen time is. If they need to rework on the form and they want to clear everything out so that they can start over again, they can also select the clear all option. Once they have completed a form, they would want to go ahead and click on the submit option. Once they have submitted a form, they can still go ahead and click on the link to see the completed form and download the copy of the form themselves. I'm going to take a quick pause to see if there are any questions about distribution or how the supervisors or preceptors will be able to access the form.
We don't have any questions, and we have been answering them on the chat. Oh,
I do
yeah.
see that someone had their, two people have their hands up, Kathleen and Melissa. If we want to just have them ask their questions directly, I can unmute them one at a time. Kathleen, what was your question?
My question is for if we're distributing a form to a preceptor, we have our clinical instructors in our system, but we don't have the individual preceptors when the students go to preceptorship. So do they have to be loaded into our system and have, granted access to Exxat, or will they just get the link and be able to complete the evaluation from there?
They would just get the link and be able to complete it that way. We do have the ability to set up the preceptor module for any of the educators where they can log in and see which links have been sent to them, but they would not be granted access to the actual Exxat Prism that your program is using.
Okay, so do we kind of have to set that up ahead of time?
The students can also add the preceptor and then have that be the person that is receiving the links. And then as one of those custom workflows that we had gone over, we can also set it up so the students choose from the list of preceptors who should receive the link, or the school can choose who from those preceptors receives the link.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Melissa Blake, you had a question as well. I'm not seeing your audio set up though. I had unmuted you, but there we go. And Melissa, if you're not able to ask here, if you want to just go down to the chat option and type in the question, then we can read that off as well. All right, I'm going to go ahead and mute Melissa back, and then we can continue, and I'll look out for those questions.
Thank you, Joanna. Okay,
Thank you.
so now, thank you. So now let's go ahead and see the forms and evaluations for the students. So once you set up the publish day, they will be able to log into their account and access their forms. Yeah. So the students can access the forms from two sections. The first one is the coursework. So they click on their coursework, they select their course, and they will be able to see the forms that they need to complete. Or they can go to the learning activities, select forms and evaluations at the top, select the rotation they're working with, and complete the forms here. When they click on the form name, they will be able to see the form, they will be able to complete it. They also have the option to go ahead and save the form in case if they are working through it. They can go ahead and clear the form if they need to get started and add all the responses from scratch. And then they can also see instructions in case if you want to add some instructions for your students. When they click on the view instructions over here, they will be able to view those instructions as well. But once they have completed the form, they would have to go ahead and click on the submit icon. Now, the option that we were talking about earlier for the students to be able to pick the preceptor, your students will also be able to pick a preceptor if you have set it up that way, where the student can add a preceptor, or from the list, they will be able to select the preceptor and send out the form. Once they do that, they will be able to submit it. Let's go ahead and see the reviewing of the form. Now the students have completed their part, the supervisors have completed their part, and it comes for the school to review these forms. Schools can go in and go to the learning activities from the dashboard. Again, here you can access forms by group or just directly clicking on the forms and evaluations for those certain courses. Once you select that option, on the left hand side here, the first thing you see is the form summary. So you will be able to see the list of students for that particular course or rotation. And at the top here, you will see the list of all the learning activities that they are supposed to be completing. Additionally, you will also be able to see the list of forms individually on the left-hand side here, in case if you need to review the form individually. At the top here, you will also be able to see the percentage that is added for the weightage towards the final grade of the student for a specific course. So these are the percentage that we can see. For the school to review the form, you want to make sure that you look for the yellow title which says pending school review. This means that this is on you to go in and now review the form. When you click on the pending school review form, you will be able to open up the form here. Here you will be able to see the details along with the student name, the site where they are placed at. You'll also see the rotation title, and you can see the due date of the form as well with the setting. You can see the form, review it. You'll also be able to see the status of the form and the score here at the top. Once everything is completed, you can then go ahead and select an option here to mark it as reviewed. So anything that is marked as reviewed will be changed as the status to green to identify that this is good to go. Before we get into the student performance review, I just wanted to quickly go over to the system and wanted to show you the individual form section where you will be able to review them as well. So typically here, this is where you see the summary, but if you pick an individual learning activity, you will also be able to review it here as well. So for example, you can see the forms here. Additionally, you will also be able to see the due date of the form and when was the form submitted. So this is where you will be able to see if a student completed this after the due date has passed. You will also be able to see the log, just in case if you need to see which stage of the form went through and things like that. So if there were multiple users and multiple people working on the form, you could see the log of when did they complete what. Now I'm going to go back to my presentation. So we have created the student performance review section in the system. Let's take a look at that. We are pleased to announce that the gradebook is now available for the rotations. Earlier, it was set up under courses by rotation. So the previous view presented the student-wise data. Now, this was under the course offering section, but we've recently moved this with the April release. And the newer version is available under the rotation views where the data is organized by placement. This is moved under the learning activities group now. So it is also important for programs to set up their learning activities groups so that they can go ahead and access the student performance review. To access the student performance review, you can go to the learning activities from the main menu, click on your learning activity group, select the rotations options at the top, and then you can pick the learning activity, which is forms and evaluations for any of the rotation that you want to work with. Once you click there, you will reach this page where you will see the list of all your forms. When you scroll down at the bottom, the last section is the student performance review. When you click on it, you will see this screen where you will be able to see this based on the rotations or the blocks. You will see the student placement information on the left hand side, the final score here. You can also see the learning activities individually at the top. Here, you will be able to make any changes or edits to the grades for the students. Depending on whether you want to edit this for the entire learning activity for all the students. If you want to do that, you can click on the pencil icon here. This will open up a window for you where you can make the changes to the scores or add the opt-in score. You can add the opt-in score individually for each individual student by directly clicking here and making that change. Or if you need to do a bulk update for all the students for that learning activity, you can select all or select handpick students. Click on this option that says bulk update. This will open up a window where you can set up the score that everyone has obtained and click on update. So it will be applicable for all. The other way to edit the scores is also by an individual student. So let's say that you want to update the scores for that individual student across different learning activities and forms. You can click on the pencil icon, which is under actions. When you click here, this page will open up with the student details. You can see all the learning activities activated on the left-hand side and click on those individually. You will be able to see the obtained score over here. You could either change this directly and save it. Once you do that, you will be able to see the score and the weightage. Once you have completed that, you can go ahead and save it. Now, once you have edited all the scores, you will be able to extract a summary report for the student's final grade. When you click on this export summary over here, this will generate a spreadsheet that would look something like this. The first page of the spreadsheet is the summary page. Here you will be able to see the student's name, their course name, the term, academic year, the rotation. Here you will be able to see the forms and the learning activities. You will also be able to see the obtained score, the weightage, and the final grade in the last section. Additionally, if you wish to see the scores and the grades for individual courses, you can go ahead and select those here on your spreadsheet that is exported. I just wanted to see if there are any questions about the student performance review or anything else.
Um, we don't see any questions. I just wanted to bring to everyone's attention the previous question that Melissa had asked is how can you attach a evaluation to a didactic course? So, Panaz, if you want to quickly just go over that.
Yeah, sure. So firstly, when you want to attach an evaluation to a didactic form, you would have to request this to your CSS team member or the account manager. They will collect those requirements and definitely set it up. The activation process is pretty much the same, where you go to the learning activities and activate the form for the didactic course. So I'll just show you the option of the date when you are activating that. Yeah. So from the setup page over here, you will be able to see that form created on the setup option here. And then when you're working with activating that form, the example is something that I can show you here is you will say, no, this does not require a placement. And then you would get the option to select the date of when you want to publish it. However, just make sure that you do the course offering as you would do for a placement course. It's just that this is a didactic course. And then instead of it attached to a placement publish date like before or after, you are just selecting a date from the calendar for when this should be visible to your students on. Yeah, you can also select the due date of when this should be due for the students to complete by. Again, this will be a calendar date because this does not require any placements, and then you can go ahead and save this. So your students will be able to log into their account, go to their coursework page, and then similarly how they access placement related form, they will be able to do the same for the didactic form as well. I hope that addressed your question.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Panaz. There are no further questions. We can move ahead.
Okay, thank you so much. Let me switch back to my presentation. Okay, so now let's talk about the end result, which is our reports for our learning activities, basically the forms and evaluations. Firstly, let's take a look at how to access these reports. We'll also see the types of reports that are available. To access your reports, you would want to go to the learning activities section, and it is important for you to create your learning activity groups. When you click on the group name, you will be able to see this last section, which is for your reports. So when you click on reports, this screen shows the the reports that we've set up for PT programs. These are standard reports for them. But for them as well, when they need to access it, they would have to create a learning activity group and click on the report directly to be able to access it. For any other program, again, you would have to go to learning activities. And then here at the top, you can see this section which says reports. You can click on reports over here. You will be able to see the reports that are available today for forms and evaluations. So we have the aggregate report, we have raw data report, graphical data report, and things like that. Today, we are going to show the aggregate report and the graphical report. So when you click on the report name, it opens up this page for you. The first thing you want to do is make sure you select your course offering. So when you click here, it will open up the list of courses. You can select up to 50 courses. So you can select those courses. Then the next step is for you to select the form that you want to see on that aggregate report. So here you will be able to pick a form. Now it is suggested that when you want to see the aggregate data this way, you want to always make sure that you just create one copy of the form and use it across multiple course offerings and don't have separate forms. Otherwise, you won't be able to see the aggregate report this way. You may have to download it separately and merge those files together. So it is always suggested you just create one copy of the form and then you can use it across multiple different courses or course offerings. Yeah. Secondly, it is always advised that it is good to have a score associated with these forms so that this aggregate data can be generated. So just to call that out. Then once you have made your selection of the form, you can select the rotations you want to see. You can also select the settings and the statuses. So you will be able to see this aggregate report by different kinds of groups. So over here, you will be able to select whether you want to see this based on rotation, or a specific setting, or by site or location, or by preceptor or student. Now, depending on what you have selected, you will be able to generate the report here by clicking on this generate report option. And this is the example of what that data is going to look like. So we've selected student over here. We can see the list of students for the specific form for the selected courses and rotations. And then you can also see the number of forms they have completed across multiple rotations. The questions are at the top and the scores are over here individually for each question by student or for each question by multiple students listed here. So the aggregate data, the averages are calculated at the bottom for each question for individual students over here. When you move this cursor towards the right, depending on the form length, this would go towards the right. But essentially, when you move it towards the right, you will be able to see that there is also the averages calculated for each individual student score as well. And you can see the class average as well over here at the bottom. Yep. The other report, which is the graphical report, again, when you click on the graphical report from the reports section, here you will be able to select the course offering. So you want to make sure you select the courses that you want to see the report for. You also have the option to pick which form you want to see the information or the report for, the rotation, the setting, and the status. Once you click on generate report, this will give you two views. One is by setting, the other one is by rotation. So this is an example of by setting. So here we can see for the question, this is for family medicine, for example, and then there's also the description of the graph here. If you want to see it by rotation, you can click on this by rotation, and then you would see something like this, where you can see the questions, and then you can see this data for each rotation. We'll also be able to see the count here on the right hand side. I'm just going to take a quick pause to see if there are any questions about reports or anything else.
Yes, there is a question posted. She wants to, Angela wants to know, where can you see the qualitative data in the reports?
Yep. So the qualitative data that we are referring to is the one for the aggregate report, where you can see the scores and the averages, right? However, the quantitative data is associated with the raw data report. So the raw data will just give you the answers. There won't be any calculations done over here or the averages. You will just be able to export the questions and then the score for each question for each individual student. This calculation is something that you won't be able to see on a quantitative raw data report. The qualitative report is the aggregate report that we are seeing right now. But Joanna, if you would want to add to this.
I just want to add that the importance of adding scoring to the forms. There are many forms that we have configured for programs that, because they do not require a score and they're not part of the student's grade, that no values are added to those forms. But without adding scoring, even if the answer is a 1, a 2, a 3, etc., the system is rating those as characters and not values in order to create these averages and totals. So in order for us to add those forms to this report, we would need to say that the 1 equals 1, 2 equals 2, etc. And if there's a total form score or an average or a total. So all of those types of things would need to be considered. And currently these are for placement-based forms. We do intend to roll this out for didactic forms as well, but it's important to know that there is that current limitation. However, if you do need us to set this up for didactic courses, there is the workaround to place your students at a generic site, such as the name of your university at your university's campus. And if you do set up a didactic course in that manner, we have the ability to do group direct placement so that you can place a bulk amount of your students at a time, so it's not quite as time consuming to do those placements. If you do have more questions about changing your forms, please reach out to your account manager or the support team to get that conversation started.
Um, Thank you, Joanna. I also see her follow-up question from her. Do you have any reports on for a student to see that data across rotations? So, which would be the best report to see a student data across the rotations?
So today we don't have the report for students to be able to access for the forms.
Mm,
For the
no,
activities, we
sorry. Sorry, I misspoke. The student data to be able to see across rotations. So to
So when you have a form where it's the same form used across rotations, you can currently utilize these reports to see that all together. That's why you do see rotation, block 1, block 2. So if it's something like the evaluation of the site and preceptor, but currently when they're separate forms, you would need to look at those individually to see how your students are doing. We do have the intention to build out some additional reports so that you can see at least the final score of each of those forms for your students. But I would also let you know that if you decide you want to a form where there's some standard questions that are the same across all of the rotations, but then you have some unique questions, we can build a form where certain questions can trigger additional questions, certain answers can trigger questions. So if you asked, what is the setting that you are reviewing, and the student or the preceptor selected family medicine, then you would receive additional questions related to family medicine. But because it would technically be all one form, just with variables in the answers, then the reporting would be able to be one report across all of the rotations. But we would recommend waiting to make changes to forms until the start of the next clinical year. And currently we're asking for 3 to 4 weeks advance request for new forms. If you do anticipate having a large number of forms at one time, then we would ask that you just provide some additional time, as we do schedule to deliver all of those forms in the timeframes to be available for the first use date for each program. And so occasionally we'll get an influx of requests. And so that's why we're asking for that lead time. It does not actually take us that long to build the reports or the forms.
okay. Thank you, Joanna. So that pretty much brings us to the end of our webinar today. We just wanted to also include some help center links here. The first one that you see is the help center link for the school. Here you will be able to see help documents with screenshots to set up, distribute, review your forms and evaluations. The second link here is for your students. They will be able to see the overview of the learning activities and how to complete those. We also have our YouTube channel where we have uploaded the webinar recordings from our past webinars for the learning activities. So this is the one. And then there's another recording that is available for the students to be able to see how they can go about completing their forms and evaluations. So this is the link to that. Additionally, we just wanted to let you know the next webinar that we have in this series is about faculty and faculty module, which is on next Thursday, April 13th, sorry, April 11th, 2024. The registration link is given here. And you can also see all our upcoming webinars on this link over here. Thank you everyone for joining in. That's about it from us.